Not every missing person that I post up about or see is permanently missing. Obviously, the lady who is the screensaver for this one is a woman who was found, a 77-year-old. There's also a lot of people that don't end up being found. Now, there's a situation here with Tillamook Family Counseling Center, and I found out earlier today that and I've heard rumors about this before, but apparently it's something that's actually happening. Tillamook Family Counseling Center has been assisting the local sheriff's department in getting away with a lot of felonies. So there's quite a few people that are not happy with Tfcc. There's another mental health place here, and they're not the ones that we're being sent to. We're being sent to the rubber stamps. This is nationwide. You know what a rubber stamp is, right? Well, when you have a government position, well, you get a rubber stamp. It's got your name on it, your official title, and all that. The reason that they call somebody who's a walkover a rubber stamp is because they're not going to bother to take a look at what they're signing. They're just going to assume and stamp their name on it, their signature on it, because an officer said. They're not going to bother to find out the validity of it. Now, I had more than one of my public pretenders tell me that my prosecution or my judge were rubber stamps for one another, such as Arapahoe County. My public pretender there told me that the magistrate that I got, Kathleen M. Jansky, was a rubber stamp for the prosecution. Prosecution went out of their way to avoid an actual court date and to assist in threatening, harassing, and intimidating me. Not only that, but my own public pretender and the judge took part. This is why there needs to be somebody there who actually cares about us. Because although every person involved knew that they were knowingly and willingly and intelligently committing felonies, these are lawyers and judges, folks. Yes, they were aware they committed felonies. Same as those officers were aware they committed felonies. But who cares, right? I mean, these guys all got to work together. They don't want to piss each other off or make their lives any worse. Meanwhile, they got cush jobs. They get cush money for doing what? Jack squat. Well, unfortunately, this has resulted in a lot of dead people. In my case in specific, there are over a dozen people who are dead specifically due to the fact that police didn't want to do their jobs. Very specifically, because police didn't want to do their jobs, but not just police. There's also all these mental health places. Now, I would like to sit here all day and work on this, however, due to the fact that it's Fred Meyers and I don't want to get yelled at again for just hanging out, I make sure I mind my P's and Q's. There's also the fact there's a lot of stuff in public I can't talk about. So I got to go to Tfcc, who is absolutely useless. They're a rubber stamp. If I go to Tillamook Family Counseling Center after being abused, they'll blow me off. They'll want to just focus on housing. If I have a mental breakdown, they're going to have me harmed instead of trying to understand. This is what makes me such a badass. I was able to help a lot of people because unlike the idiots in this town, I'm not an idiot. I do actually care about other human beings instead of just a paycheck, obviously, because I don't get a paycheck for doing this. Nobody pays me to care about you. Nobody pays me to care about your rights as an American or as a human being. I have to do that on my own. I have to care about myself enough to fight for those rights. It just so happens that you cowards reap the benefit if I succeed. If I don't, well, it's your fault for just watching. When you guys talk about how your kids are killed, well, that's what you get for just watching. when you talk about how the law was completely ignored and how these goons did whatever they wanted to you. Just remember, when it happened to others, you just watched, you made excuses, and then you want to talk about karma. That's the cutest one ever. Now I'm getting ready to pack up here in the Starbucks at Fred Meyer's. As far as the races go, I didn't have to see or deal with any of them racist a-holes this morning. Only one of them even showed up. He's old enough, he'll just point at me through his window. He ain't gonna do anything, so I don't have to worry. Now, if it was one of these younger idiots, yeah, I gotta worry about their testosterone getting the best of them. I gotta worry about them accidentally forcing me to beat them to death. I gotta worry about all sorts of stuff because, well, people are dumb. And the younger they are, the dumber they are. A lot of these older racists, they got it made. They got a pretty decent wage coming in. They also got youngins that they can talk into doing the stupid stuff for them, just like any politician. Give them a gun, give them a uniform, and point them at something they can shoot at. God bless America, right? American way. Is the best natural shooter that I know. I can tell you there's still better ways of doing things than shooting things. Now, I was raised to believe that there's very few problems that cannot be solved by the application of high explosives. I tried to get into the Navy, matter of fact. I was going in for explosives engineering. Isn't that interesting? You know what an explosives engineer does on board a ship? He unclogs toilets. Sorry, explosives ordnance, my bad. Now, what does an explosives ordnance do other than that? Well, let's say you're having to launch yourself some boom booms from off one of your ships, primarily destroyers, is what we use today. What they've got is a bunch of different types of missiles on them, and those missiles have to be manufactured below decks, depending on the ship that you're on. Some of them, like the set that we're redesigning now, basically they're cargo holds, a bunch of cylinders that go from the bottom of the ship to the top of the ship, and they have a rocket in them, and the explosives are already all assembled. Now, back in the 90s, in the late 90s, early 2000s, it was a little bit different, and they needed people to be on board ships that were a little bit bigger, or ships that might not otherwise be destroyers, might possibly need to have the same effect. Well, if you're going to put some of those things onto an airplane, let's say you're working on an aircraft carrier, you need an explosives engineer and an explosives ordnance officer, and then you've got the people who work in explosives ordnance under those two people. And their job is to, let's say you want to put your Sidewinder on your jet. You don't just store a live Sidewinder. You think that's not smart. So what they do is they've got the control components and the explosives components that are kept separately. It's a 3-stage module. When you put them all together, then you get to do something magical and attach it to an airplane and go blow stuff up with it. And of course, the world we live in today, we want everything to be automated. It's just kind of like a lot of the stuff that I had when I was younger was hand-me-downs from like the 40s and 50s and even 60s. I even had a lawnmower that looked like a turtle. It looked like somebody had taken a turtle and put a chair in the center of the turtle's back and put a couple of handles coming out of its head. And it was, I want to say Westinghouse, maybe? Sears subsidiary. I know it starts with a W. I just can't remember exactly what the name of it is. Westinghouse is actually the people who made America's first production jet engine. And it was the Westinghouse 9.5. The reason it was called a 9.5 is because it had a 9.5-inch diameter at the opening. When they say the opening, they're referring to the intake, whereas the exhaust port is just called the exhaust port for the exhaust. I really wanted to get into the Navy, and that was pretty important to me. The deal staying at my Aunt Mary's was that I get a job and try to get disability. Well, I was denied disability because I tried to get a job. I had a job. I was also prevented from military service because I applied for disability. So no matter what I did, I was screwed. At least I tried, right? That's the important part. No, it's not. Having support is the important part. Here in the United States, our Constitution, what does it start with? We the people of the United States of America, in order to, well, you know how it goes, but it starts off with we the people. Not we the whites, or we the blacks, or we the men, or we the women. And you get to see all this hatred. You notice how on my channel I rail against both men and women, and I try to do so equally. Predators are not predators based on skin color. They're not predators based on gender. Whether or not somebody chooses to do wrong things is up to their choice to do so. Now, choice. We get that thrown in our faces every day, don't we? It's your choice, your choice, your choice. Well, we get to choose which choice we make, but we don't get to choose what decisions we have to begin with. I'll give you an example for some of y'all older folks. I had Vietnam thrown in my face about a week as something that people did not have a choice in. Was telling me that when he was in Vietnam, they didn't really have a choice in whether or not they went out. He was referring to getting hogtied and thrown out in the boonies, out in the middle of the jungle, where, you were going to go. Your buddies were going to tie you up and take you with if need be. Oh, how valid are these stories? I don't know. I wasn't in Vietnam. I don't even know that this guy was in Vietnam himself. I just know the stories that they tell. For me, I like to have evidence. I like to have proof. But I also have the benefit of living in a modern world where we can actually save that evidence, save that proof, make those recordings. I listen to a lot of older folks complaining about youngins. That's because them older folks are idiots. I hear a lot of youngins complaining about older folks. Well, that's because them younger folks are idiots. People are people, and they should be judged on an individual basis. Those of you who don't like me because of how I act, you're welcome. I'm still fighting for your rights. You're offended because I curse. I'm offended because you look away to the most horrible and atrocious things that human beings in any society can commit. And your excuse for looking away to it happening here is that people do it in Mexico, people do it in Africa, people do it in Asia. So your excuse is that it must be okay because it's happening elsewhere. Is that it? Or are you trying to be blind and pretend that it doesn't happen here? That it's just a figment of the victim's imaginations? Apparently there's a song on about being brave. I wonder what the name of it is. Would it be brave? Or maybe grow a pair? Or you just need to man up? Or maybe it's you just need to woman up? There's 1,000,001 ways of saying exactly the same thing. When it comes down to it, what does be brave mean exactly? Does it mean does it mean standing up to the tyrants? What does it mean? One of my favorite sayings, and almost my motto, is do the right thing because it's the right thing to do. I don't always know what the right thing to do is, and neither do you. What I do know is that people know their situations better than I do. If they need help, they know what help they need. If they're in a complicated situation and what they need is a ride to the airport, I'll give them a ride to the airport. I'm not going to spend 6 years arguing with them when they needed a ride to the airport 6 years ago. I'm not going to offer them a ride to the airport and then make every excuse not to show up and then complain to them 6 years later. Oh, well, you know, I offered you that ride to the airport. Yeah, you used words. Congratulations, son. Did you follow through? Yeah, they call that, I'm trying to remember the name, poison blanket syndrome. No, it's not an actual syndrome, but it's, yes, I am helping you by hurting you idea. Okay, well, you guys are starving. Well, here's some food that just happens to be poisoned. Yeah. So when it comes to saving lives, it comes down to your choice. Your choice. The options that you have, a lot of people are going to tell you what you need to do, think, and feel based on the options that they have. They're also going to make excuses based on their incompetence, their ignorance, and their cowardice. I don't trust anyone for a reason. And all of the people who have told me I can trust them have showed me that I can't. And through all of this, I have never stopped helping find missing people. I have never stopped speaking out about abuse. And I'm not going to. I can be brave. But what version of brave is it? Your version or mine? What do you consider cowardly? A lot of you want to pretend I'm cowardly because instead of going out and shooting these son of a bitches, I tried taking them to court. Well, that shit's just not fucking acceptable. I don't give a holy goddamn who you are. I'll stand up for the underdog, even if it leads to my death. I don't owe it to you to take it like a little bitch. Oh, fucking Christ. Anyway, there's a lady I was told to get a hold of. Before I can get a hold of her, I gotta go through getting connected to their services. As long as it's not Tillamook Family Counseling Center, not only do they have a bad reputation, they are getting sued. And from what I was told, it's a class action suit. They did a lot of really messed up things to a lot of people. And it also turns out a lot of the things they did are in fact illegal, so there might be some potential arrests. But we also get to see how, even when it's blatant and obvious, like with Officer Waylon Lolatai in Colorado, he got away with it because of corruption, because these officers believe they should be allowed to violate your rights. They believe that they should be, well, not held accountable to the law. They feel that they should be allowed to use their position of power for personal vendettas or to advance the careers of their friends or buddies. Or in fact, to threaten, harass, and intimidate innocent people for telling on them. A lot of people expect me to STFU, right? Shut the fuck up. They haven't found a way to shut me up yet. God, after all these years, you'd think you guys would work together to shut me up. But it ain't working too good, is it? In all these years, none of you have been able to find a way to shut me up. I want to brag about that one more time. In all these years, none of you have found a way to shut me up. You tell me I'm asking for it. Oh boy, I guess I am. Huh. I didn't ask for people to abuse me, I asked them to follow through. Big difference. When somebody tells me they're gonna kill me, I ask them to follow through. You want to make that threat? Follow through. But it doesn't matter, right? I'm not a human being. You're right, I'm not a human being. According to your society, I am not a person. According to your society, I should not be allowed any rights. According to your society. According to the law, I'm supposed to be protected, but none of these protections were ever utilized or put into place, nor put into action. Cops were allowed to repeatedly harm me over and over and over again, and so did my friends. Now, how good of friends are they if they're conning you out of what's yours? How good of friends are they if they're making promises to you, if you spend what little resources you have, and then once your resources are gone, they're gone. People who are at-risk adults are especially prone to this. The homeless ones, more than anyone else. As a homeless male, you have a 1 in 960 chance of being killed by a police officer in your life, this year. If it doesn't increase again, which, well, it went from 49% of those who were killed by police in 2019 being homeless to last year, 60% were homeless. That's an 11% increase in just a few short years. If we have a 11% increase every 4 years, after 20 years, how much have we increased? How many more homeless people are being killed? Meanwhile, the homeless population in 2019, when 49% of those killed by police were homeless, what was their population size? About 500,000. So now, we've got a population size for the homeless of almost 600,000. That's what they're allowing to be officially documented. So with this going on, and this hatred towards the homeless, and our families being the ones that take advantage of us, and you help the predators. They call us mentally ill, and you help them get away. Rapists, child molesters, woman beaters, you don't give a fuck. You just want us to go to some place like Tillamook Family Counseling Center, paying no regard to the situation there or how they treat others. There are other victims, such as Claire Palmer. Sorry, Claire Jordan. What they did with her children is not acceptable. We all need to be afraid. The more you look away to the crimes of others, the more likely it is those crimes are to happen to you. What you allow to happen to the most marginalized of our society, you deserve to have visited upon you. That is not the same as claiming that I am willing to go do such things to you. With most of you, all I've shown is that you're cowards who don't actually give a shit. You pretended to be my friend because you saw some sort of advantage in it. When I hurt my back, there was no longer any advantage, but you just kept on sticking around and pretending you gave a shit. Sorry, there was a lady barking. She might have Tourette syndrome. About 30% of us with Tourette syndrome have vocal tics. That's the vocal noises that we make, like, or, you know, the people who curse. But there's such a small percentage of our numbers. Only 30% of people with Tourette syndrome have a vocal tic. And of those 30%, only 5% of them have that vocal tic that makes you curse. Of course, sometimes it's another word. It might not be a curse word. For some people, those of you who are stoners and watch stoner movies, you understand the road. What a weird word. Road. All right, well, we got to see that on the movies. Well, that there, when you're stuck on a word like that and you have to say it, you can't stop yourself from it. That is either an OCD trait or a Tourette syndrome trait, and that depends on how it feels. Me, I understand how OCD feels. I also understand what Tourette syndrome feels like. I have to control both of them. I have to do my best not to touch a door handle in a weird way every time I touch it, because people will assume all sorts of crazy shit about you just because you touched a handle twice. Now let's hope that this other place is in tune with actually helping people instead of just riding the clock for cash. Also, if they're interested in sending me to other places, that's not acceptable. That puts me in a much greater situation as far as being unsafe. Anyway, I got an appointment tomorrow at 10 o'clock in the morning, so I got to be there at 9:40 a.m. Hopefully, these Nazis that work here in this town don't pull any of their Nazi bullshit, but we all have to be aware that it's a common tactic and that it is something that is a very real fear, because it's a fear that has been used many times. For me, being sent from one place to another, constantly told to go somewhere else. Well, I'm about sick of this. It's horrible. It is horrible. You can't shut me up. You can't do it. I will never stop speaking out.